Hey everybody and welcome back to Das Studio. Thanks for joining me today. In this episode we're going to add our doors and windows and start our texturing on our apartment. Before I get started, a huge thank you to everybody for subscribing and hitting that notification icon. That really helps me out. And of course a massive thank you to my members and patrons. Your names will be running across the bottom of the screen at the end of the video. If you are interested in supporting the channel, feel free to visit the Patreon in the description below, or simply hit the join button next to the subscribe button. So let's jump into this then. So in this apartment there are not actually that many windows and doors, so this shouldn't take too long. So first thing I want to do is punch a window in this wall, and this is almost entirely window. This is like 1.5 meters of wall, and then the rest of it's all window. So this is an easy-ish one to start off with. So we're going to go back to our geometry editing tool, which is this one here. And we are, in fact, this one, change of plan, this one, what we're going to do is we're just going to reduce the Y scale to 150%. There we go. That's our window. Perfect. And we can put our glass plane in there or whatever later on. So that was a pretty easy win. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do the door first, because that is... location wise, I'm now going to quickly look at my floor plan, and I can see that it's actually fairly close to this end of the room. I would say kind of here. So what we want to do is we're going to go for our geometry selection tool, and there's two ways we can do it. We can either punch a hole, which is going to leave a weird kind of shape, but since I never intend to open this, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to skip that, and I'm just going to stick a door to the wall that's never going to be opened, because it's just decorational, because we haven't got anything outside, so there's no point having an opening door there. So what I can do is I can just plop a door prop in there. So that saved us a bit of time, didn't it? Yeah, I'm actually looking at this wall now, this one here, and what we could do is we could actually duplicate this object and create a window that way, which is probably, thinking about it, the most sensible way of doing it. If we punch a hole in the wall, it's going to leave us with an internal thing, but I'm actually going to do it the geometry editing tool way, simply because I want to make sure that this is all done nice and solid, and it also gives me a chance to demonstrate how to do it. So got our wall selected, go to our geometry editor tool, which, if you remember, is the pencil over the checker box. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my selection type, my selection mode, to drag selection again. And I want the window to be kind of that big. That works for me. And I'm just going to delete those polygons there. Geometry editing, delete selected polygons. Boom, job done. So now we can see the ones on the other side. And we're going to delete those as well. Geometry editing, delete selected polygons. Bosh, and that's our window. Now, this is not job done by any stretch of the imagination, because what we have now is a gap here all the way around where you can see into the cavity inside the wall, which we don't want. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to throw in there a window prop that I've made for another set, and then that will fill that gap just nicely, because we know its dimensions. We can easily make an object fill that void, and we could theoretically do it by simply creating a shape to fit that hole. We know that it is a, well, we've got four, so we know that the window, this is 8 high, so we know that's 1.5 meters tall by, I want to say, let's have a look, we can work this out easily enough. It's about 1.6 meters that way, 1.66 meters that way, so I could easily create an object to fill that gap. Because of these grids on the floor are 1 meter across, you can sort of guesstimate, and then it'll get you close, and you can just sort of fine tune it, which let's do that now, just for the sake of demonstration purposes. So we're going to create our cube like so, and we are going to just leave it with that number of divisions. That's fine. Go to our move tool again. We're going to bring this across to here like that. So we know that that is So now we can get it into the right position and get the right dimensions. So I'm going to guess that my guess was correct and that it's actually 166% that way. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. And I'm guessing that it's 150% that way. We're going to turn off our grid snapping for this because we want to make sure that it is bang on. And we know that it's 110 mil that way on the x-axis, so we can just go 10% there. And we can drag it into place like that. Now we know that one end of our shape lines up with this grid line here. Not that that helps us a great deal right now, but we can actually go into our topographical front view, whatever you want to call it, and kind of align that perfectly. And then we can do the same thing on that scale. Looks pretty close, doesn't it? I would say that's as near as damn it. So now we can go to our geometry editor tool, make sure that we've got that object selected. Selection modes, drag selection, and then we can just select the faces that we want to delete. Geometry editing, delete selected polygons, yes. And as you can see, that's now filled up that shape nicely. And now, why haven't I deleted the back face? It's because I'm going to make that glass. In a nutshell, that's what's happening, whether you like it or not. Get used to it. So, right, now we can adjust the position if we need to. We could go into NVIDIA IRA mode and check that there's no light creeping through. We can do that later on. But for the sake of creating that window there, that's what we've got now. We've got that sorted. Bish bash bosh. So now we know that there's no window in the bathroom. We've got a window on the back face of this bedroom. So we can essentially do the same thing. Just move my camera into position. So go to our move tool, select that object, go to our geometry editor tool. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go with 4 on that face. Geometry selection, geometry editing, delete selected polygons. Yes. Do the same thing again. Yes. That. There we go. Beautiful. Now, so that is exactly 1 meter across, which really helps us out. So we're going to go to create another cube there. Plot this into place. Now we know on the z-axis it is 10%, and we know on the y and the z-axis, sorry, that it is exactly 1 meter across. So all we need to do is have a look at where it is on the. So that's 4. So that's 50%. So it's 150 on the scale. Not actually 1 meter across, is it? Unless that's perspective messing with my head. No, that's not. Let's have a look. Where are we? 1.5. It looks like 1 meter to me. Unless I'm being an utter bonehead. Well, yeah, it is. But the cube is 1 meter. The gap is not. The gap is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's 75%. So on the X scale, we just go to 75%. Boom. We haven't got snapping on, so we're going to just whip that into place that way. Close enough. The Z scale. 125 minus 1250. That just gets that perfectly into place. This is actually meant to be minus 112.5. Oh, that's perfectly in place. Well, this is meant to be 112.5 as well. Cool. Now we can go back to our geometry editing tool and we can select these faces. And geometry editing. Delete selected polygons. Hells yeah. And that's another window in position. So we've only got one more window to do, and that's this back window on this bedroom, this one here. And this one is the slightly different shapes So we select that cube, come to our geometry editing tool, and it's kind of in the same spot, so I'm actually going to go with that there. Delete selected polygons. Do the same thing for the internal ones. Delete selected polygons. Yes. Beautiful. So what dimensions have we got? Now this one actually is a meter across and it's 1.5 meters wide. So this one's going to be dead easy. Create a, no, we don't want to create null. We want to create another cube. On the X scale, it is 10%. Z scale doesn't need to change. Y scale is 150. Just drag this over here. Slide that up. So we know on the Y scale we need to be 112.5. Z translate needs to be the same as the wall that we've deleted a piece from. So we can select that if we want to. That is 550. Oh no, sorry, that's wrong. That's the wrong. That's meant to be the X position that I was changing there. So that's 750. Move that back. And then the Z scale is the only one that we have to get bang on. So we slot that across there. Find the nearest, and I'd say that's minus 650 personally. Looks good. In we go with our geometry editing tool again. Drag out the polygons that we don't want. Front face. Geometry editing. Delete selected polygons. Boom. Right, so that's our windows done. I could add our another window to here. In fact, let's do that. Although this one's got panes and stuff in it, or it should have. For the sake of this demonstration, let's just forget about that though. We're just gonna we must do the proper job. Let's get it done properly. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 meters across, is it? Or am I looking at the wrong thing? Let's go to the outside. 1, 2, 3, 4.5 meters across. So that's on the X scale. 450. We know that on our Z scale we're at 10%, and we know that the Y scale is 150, and we know that X translate needs to also be 150 so that it lines up the top of that window. Get it into roughly the right position. Okay, so it isn't 450 across, it's actually only 400. Cool beans. So now we need to check the positions of this. 750, 50. Minus 750. 50 on that scale. That's perfectly lined that up. And now we can use our geometry editing tool to highlight the faces that we want to delete. Like so. Now, thinking about this, we don't actually need to do all of this. I know what you're thinking. Oh, thanks for that, Matt. You've just wasted 5 minutes of my life. That's 5 minutes I'm never going to get back. But hear me out. What we can do is, because there's going to be a ceiling here, we've already got a top surface and 2 side surfaces, so we don't need to worry about the cutout problem. So we can actually do this with just a simple plane with a glass property added to it. So we're just going to go to plane, go with 1 meter, 1 division, accept, find that plane there. I'm going to just drag that up over there. So we know it's 400 meters across on the X scale. We know we don't need to worry about the Z scale on the Y scale, but in this case we actually do. So that's actually going to be 150%, and then we need to rotate it on our X scale by 90 degrees, and then we can slot this into place and just pop a glass shader on it. And again, because it's cutting into the wall over here, actually the X position doesn't need to be perfectly accurate. Drop down and we can just slot that into the wall below it. We need to make sure that this is exactly Y translate should be 150. No, it shouldn't, because of the anchor point is different on a plane from a cube, so we can just slide that up to 225. Come up above and just slot that back so that it sits kind of there. That's where I'm going for. So now we've got our windows done, doors done. Ceiling will just be a large plane. Probably just going to copy the floor plan plane, paint it white and stick it up over the top. But essentially that's everything apart from the texturing done. Now I've already put the floor objects into a floor group, if you remember from the last one. So I can actually just select all of these, and then I can find a wood shader in my content library. Just give it a minute to do its searching. Might take a minute. There we go. And then I can just apply. I'm trying to remember the color of the floor in the TV show. I think it's kinda this one. And we actually have to check the surfaces there for all of those instead and apply the surface, shade it to that, and there we go. So that kind of looks a bit weird. So we actually need to come down and individually set those because they're all different size surfaces, so they're all going to need different tiling properties, but that's essentially how you go through each one. So if we were to select floor, and then we can go down into their geometry where it says geometry, and it's going to say vertical tiles and horizontal tiles. For something this size, we want those panels to be less than, well, considerably less than they are. So let's just drag this up till go with the vertical tiles till we're at a stage where we're happy with the tiling of that. Now there's no way that these should be 1 meter wide, so looking at the floor grid, these are 1 meter across, so I'm reckoning that these should be at least 25 centimeters. So we can keep on going till we've tiled that 4 times, and then we can get our value. So that's 50. So what value are we at the moment? 8.57. So let's go with 17, and then that's much more realistic. And then to make sure that the texture lines up, I'll go 17 there as well. And then all we have to do is on all the other objects. So let's go that one. Go back again to our geometry, and we can change our vertical tiles so that they match up. We can get in nice and close here. And then we can just make sure that those line up with that. We actually need to change the horizontal tiles as well. We've actually gone a bit mental here and gone too far the wrong way, but this way we need to go. A little bit too much. Gonna go with kind of there on that scale, and then on the vertical tile scale we need to pull it back a little bit so it's more kind of there. And now you can see that those textures more or less line up, and then we would basically just go through that process with all of them on the floor surfaces and just make sure that they are roughly the same size so that it doesn't look completely mental when you start doing your renders. And then that would be that process. But I think that's about it for this episode, guys. I'll probably do the walls in another episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, guys. Bye-bye.